Hi, today I thought we would focus on our beautiful cake stand here. It's got this gorgeous top and obviously can be used as a cake stand, but I wanted to show how we can use it as a decorating piece and do a display on the pedestal stand, and then we're just going to sit this next to it as another feature. So let's have some fun with that. So I've just taken the cake stand topper off the table because we don't need to work with that. That's just going to sit at the end of our display. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of foam on here. This is a 20 centimeter size base, so that fits perfectly. This foam did come in a plastic mold, which I just wiggled backwards and forwards to loosen the glue so I could put it in there. You can see I've already used this in another piece, so I like to use my foam over and over until I can't use it anymore. And this year I am featuring my Patience Brewster deer on my a lot of my display around the house. So that's my real key piece. So I thought I would create a tabletop display with that and some trees. I may have both, I may have all three, or I might go with two. And I could even put a set of trees underneath as part of the sort of to finish off the display. And obviously to do something like this, then we want to have some foliage as well. Now you could just sit the deer. The colors aren't quite right, so I would go with a different color deer. You could just sit this on here if you wanted to, and that works. But what I thought I would do is get some foliage in there and spray it out so it becomes a much bigger display. All right, so I keep all of my offcuts. I often will cut down picks into smaller pieces, and I keep them aside so that I can use them over and over again. So I've got a mix of different foliages that we've had. You could use eucalypt, you could use cedar. If you already have a garland and you've got an end cut of a garland, you could even use some of that, break it down into smaller pieces to fill it out. So all I'm gonna do here is I want to use some of the biggest sprays of cedar to sort of work around spraying out the top, but I'm actually going to use some small eucalypt pieces sort of underneath first so that we can disguise this green base. So let's just separate out our foliage a bit. When we have something like the eucalypt, the pieces, all the smaller pieces of foliage will just pop off, and then you can simply work them into your piece. And so all I'm going to do here is put some of these, facing them downwards a bit. You want to make sure it's full so that you don't see that greenery, just to give it a base before I put the cedar in that's going to sort of spray over the top. Okay, so this piece is actually going to be sitting sort of against the wall, so I'm not going to worry about filling underneath at the back because it's not going to be visible. I will use a bit of the cedar spray though there so that it doesn't look empty. I think I'm even probably going to position it where there's a mirror, so I don't want it to be completely blank at the back, but it does save you a bit of foliage. It also means I've got a little bit of this left so I can mix it in with my other foliage when I'm done. All right, so then using some of our larger pieces, we're going to use our cedar spray, and we really want to get these pieces spraying out of our piece to give us that kind of the bigger wow factor of the size that it creates. So just wrap the wires together, and I'm going to work that into the top edges and spray it around. Some pieces are much longer than others, so I might, sort of choose the pieces that are more similar in size, or mix it up. So if you're going to have a long one, then go with a, because I'm looking, I've got more long. So if you've got the longer piece, then have the second piece after that a bit shorter so you can mix it in evenly and work it all the way through so you can use everything you've got. You could cut them down to be smaller again if you prefer. Let's have a look how it looks. No, I think that's a bit big. So I'm going to cut that down. So I'm just working into the join here in the foliage and break that down a bit. And that gives me a smaller piece here. And this one's still big, but it is a bit smaller. And if I really didn't want it this long, could even cut it. I'm just going to cut some of this and cut some of the foliage off so that I have a stem that I can still add into my piece. All right, so now I've got a piece that's more the size that I'm looking for. If it's got a little bit of wire and shape, just shape it so that it is hanging the way you want it to. This particular cedar pick we had on our website, we have currently sold out, but we do have a lovely garland in I'm pretty sure in a cedary finish that could be used as an alternative. You could break some of that down into smaller pieces as well. Sometimes I find garlands are actually a really good option for foliage because you get a lot of foliage for the price. I use the green Florist foam normally rather than the dry foam, which dry foam is meant to be used for artificial, but I find that particularly when I'm cutting down bigger pieces into quite small pieces, it means that the stems will sit better in the foam because the foam's that bit softer to work with. So that's just my preference. All I'm trying to do here is to wrap the 3 pieces of wire that are part of this stem together so it's entering as one. It means again I can reuse my foam more often if I sort of look after the foam as I put it in there. So we've got our base. Now I have got a little bit more, and I do want to keep some because I will layer a little bit more over some of the other foliage as well. So it's always handy to try and keep a couple of pieces towards the end in case you need them. And I will also just put a piece sort of the side here. And if I don't have enough of the cedar for the back, I can fill it in with one of my other little pieces of greenery that I've got here. So that will be fine. All right, so that's going to be how it sits. So she's nice looking at the front of the piece, the trees filling the side. So then what I'm going to do is simply add some of my additional foliage, even some of these offcuts I've got here, and we just want to fill the stand around it. Obviously we don't want to hide too much of her because she's beautiful. So I'm going to keep my pieces as low as I can. This particular pick, this is our tea leaf pick, and these ones are quite small. And rather than having them upwards, I'm going to face them more out. So again, just keeping it as low as I can. And I'm just going to work these foliage all the way through. And I'll cut off a little bit of cedar as well. So we've got the cedar coming through. As I said, even these pieces I've cut here, there's no reason, if it's got a stem, there's no reason we can't add that in. And then I thought I would use, because it's a bit of fun, I thought I would just put a couple of these curly sprays at the back and see how they look, and just add that little bit of sort of interest at the back with that. So I'm going to just fill in some of the greenery here, and then I'll come back and show you how I go. Actually, before I go too far, I will take off the little piece here so that I can work in close to the trees and then get that back into place and then work around the front of it. But everything else I'm going to leave in place so that I can work the foliage around it. Okay, so we've got most of the foliage into the front of the piece. Now I'm just going to add some into the back to fill it out. I'm not going to go too far because I'm going to try these curly picks to see how they look, but that way, you know, at the moment you can see the gaps coming through. And while I'm here doing that, I will also, before I put the curly picks in, put a bit of foliage around this back underneath so that it's not visible, as I said, in the mirror if that's where it's going to be positioned at my home. Okay, so I've got a little bit of foliage around the back here just to show you all it done there at the sort of, it's like icing the side of the cake. And now I found these two that I had brought home with me, and I think just a bit of a ball pick here with the whimsy of the Patience Brewster. You can do this obviously with any sort of feature piece. You've seen me do it with the gingerbread house set, the deer. I'll just show you that, like the woodlands, little woodlands deer. A piece like this gingerbread house would also work with exactly the same setup as I'm doing here. So let's see how this looks with a bit of a spray. Make sure you spray the balls out, give it a nice body. This is cut down from a larger pick, so I actually used these in a tree yesterday and then reworking them. And now we're going to use our curly sprays to sort of fill it out. And with these, you do want a bit to come out on the side. Again, I've cut down our curly spray from a larger pick to this smaller size. I'm just trying to keep the longer ones to give me the height at the top. I've got a couple of these little balls that I've cut off, so I'm going to just tap them in. Oh, don't want to hide her. I'm trying to keep everything away from her as much as I can. They could just even sit in there, it'll be fine. The last thing I'm going to do is, again, the back doesn't have any sort of filling amongst this white, so because it may be visible in the mirror, I'm going to just add a little bit more of this filler foliage to that, so that you don't see any of the foam. So there is our pedestal stand, our beautiful cake plate. Oh, that's right, and let me put this back, so when I display it, I will be sitting that just behind it. So sitting the two like that. And if you wanted to, you could even put a couple more pieces of foliage around, or some a few more sets, another set of trees to bring it together. But I think I might as well have it there because it's a gorgeous sort of feature piece on its own. This cake stand, the deers, the trees, all the pics, they're all on the website. The only thing not there sold out is the cedar spray. It's mychristmas.com.au. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's loads of different decorating tips on there for your tree as well as tabletop decorating. We'll continue to share these with you as we lead up to Christmas. Thanks again for joining me, and have a sensational day. See you. So this is where it's going to be positioned in my hallway, and you can see what we did was it actually added just a touch of the red and white ball to it, because as Zoe kindly pointed out to me, we've got the red in the lid there and we wanted it to all go together. So that's her. You're going to see me in this, but